ministry is coming to an end. His labor, work that the Lord had placed in his hand to do, he was optimistic. He really felt his gift. He was going to have another chance and another privilege to be able to plead his case and then be free. But that wasn't God's plan. See, sometimes when we are on this journey, we have our own plans, we have our own desires, we have our own self-ambitions. But I want you to understand something. When you signed up for the Lord, you were supposed to forget about yourself. You have to move from what you want to do what God has called you to do. Paul is one of the greatest writers of the Bible. His ministry was second only to Jesus Christ himself. It seems as if Paul understood the message of Christ and the teachings of Christ even better than the 12 disciples or the 11 disciples that sat at Jesus' feet. He understood that it was a mission and a command for them to go and to preach and to teach and to spread and to make, mark, and mature disciples. Paul understood it even better than Jesus' right-hand men. And when Paul was out there on the battlefield, Paul did great work for the Lord. But Paul found himself, he had been stoned before, he had been beaten with rods before, he had even been cast in jail before, but now he has asked and requested that he go to Rome and be able to plead his case before Nero. And now Paul is over in Rome, and look at they send a gift to him. And in order for Paul to tell them thank you, it took a whole book. He was just trying to say thank you, but instead of just saying thank you for what you've done, he had to write a whole book. In this book of Philipians, Paul was just trying to tell them thank you for what they had done. But he also wanted them to understand, I wasn't waiting on you to do it. Paul said, look, I have learned in whatsoever state I'm in to be content. And Paul was saying that even being in bonds, he said, I'm all right. He said, even though I'm locked in chains, I'm all right. See, one thing I like about Paul, and I've told the church this before, and I'll tell you, I'll share this with you. Look, it's all right to be isolated as long as you're insulated. It's all right to be isolated as long as you're insulated. See, he was there in the prison by himself, but you know what? He said, look, I got all I need in the Lord. See, sometimes when you find yourself on this journey by yourself, look, I want you to understand something. When you become a preacher, you'll become the loneliest person in the world. And if you become a pastor, it's sure enough get to be a lonely journey. Now look, I know that people may pat you on the back, the people may even speak to you, tell you that I love your pastor, tell you I'm praying for your pastor, but I want you to understand something. Preaching and pastoring is still a lonely job. But see, the same ones that tell you that they love you. You want me to prove it? Do you know when Jesus went before Pilate, and Pilate decided that he was going to ask the crowd, who did they want to release? Should I release Barabbas to you, or should I release Jesus to you? They cried for a murderer instead of the Messiah. And let me tell you something. Look, they had, look at those who was in the crowd. Now I want you to understand, some of those who was in the crowd were those who had seen some of the miracles that Jesus had performed. And if you're not careful, some of them in there probably was a recipient of what Jesus could do. But sometimes, you know, people will do that now. They'll praise you on one hand, but they will cut you on the other. But Paul may have been isolated, but he was insulated. so far with you, but the Lord will go all the way with you. Oh, I know shaking your pastor's hand is good for you to shake. You got a firm grip, and he'll help you as far as he can. But look, I want you to understand something. We can only take you so far, but the Lord will go on beyond. Oh, see, I can take you only so far, and then I have to let you off somewhere. But the Lord will carry you on over. Paul just thought he would, you know, in this 3rd chapter, Paul just really listed some assets and liabilities. He had told them who he was. He said, look, if anybody had anything to boast about, I want you to understand something. I have more. He said, look, I was circumcised the 8th day, you know. He said, I'm of the stock of Israel, you know, I'm of the tribe of Benjamin and all. He said, as touching the law, he said, I was blameless. He said, as a matter of fact, I was a Pharisee. And see, he was listing his assets, you know, what he got from his heritage. He said, this is what I inherited from my ancestors. He said, now I want you to understand something. Look, I'm the top of the class with it. He said, but when I found Christ, he said, those things I counted gain to me. He said, I counted them lost in Christ. See, sometimes, look, those things that's an asset to you, when you find the Lord, becomes a liability. You got to get rid of some things because, look, the Lord don't need your ingenuity, don't need your intellect. The Lord doesn't need your ambition. The Lord already knows what he needs for you to do. Just ask Isaiah. Isaiah in the 6th chapter, look, Isaiah thought that he had it going on because he was the cousin of King Uzziah. He thought he had it going on because he was rubbing elbows with Uzziah. He thought everything was all good because he was in the palace with Uzziah. But I want you to understand, when Uzziah died, all of the perks that went along with knowing the king, being around the king, went out the door. And looking, when he looked up and he saw the Lord. And look, let me just share this with you. Look, and look, y'all can preach this. Look, I want you to understand, look, God had to show him the vision of himself because Isaiah was too busy looking at the majesty of Uzziah, and God had to reveal to him who the real king was. See, this earthly stuff ain't hitting on nothing. You know, a lot of people talk about, I live in this big house, I got a nice mansion over there. You know, I know you done built something 4, 5, 6, 10,000 square feet, but let me tell you something. I heard Jesus say, in my Father's house are many mansions. Y'all missed it. He said, in my Father's house are many mansions. I didn't say in my Father's neighborhood. He said, in my Father's house. So if it's mansions in his Father's house, then I want to know what kind of house God has. Paul talking about all the stuff that he thought he had, but he said it wasn't nothing to him. It wasn't no good to him. And I want you to understand something. Even you, this stuff won't be no good to you as long as you're trying to operate in yourself. See, you got to get out of yourself and you got to operate for the Lord. Because when the Lord is the one that's pulling your string, I want you to understand something. You'll do all the things that the Lord has already laid out for you to do. It's just 3 little things or maybe 4 little things that I need to tell you, and I'm going to get on out your way. Paul said, brother, I count not myself to have apprehended. Paul said, look, I want you to understand. He said, I have not arrested what I've been arrested for. He said, I have not even captured what I have been captured for. He said, the thing that God has called me for, he said, look, even though I have a lot of accomplishments to my credit, he said, I still haven't done enough yet. He said, it's still not enough. I don't care how far you have come, it's still not enough. I don't care how high you have climbed, it's still not enough. I don't care how much doctrine you know, it's still not enough. I don't care how many scriptures you can recite, it's still not enough. You gotta keep going because what God has called you for, you hadn't even scratched the surface yet. Scratch the surface. If you think you know it all now, then you might And you know what? The Lord told me, said, look, if you had the mind of Christ, boy, you'll blow a fuse. Because it's so much to contain. It's so much that Christ does. It's so much that God is watching over. God is taking care of. So many things that's in God's hand to do. Every time you wake up in the morning, the world is still spinning on an imaginary axis. He still makes the sun to rise and to fall. He still makes the ocean to move and the waves to jump. He still raises the cows on 1,000 hills. He still got all pumping through the veins of this earth. God said, I got so much to do. And if that's not enough, he said, I still have to take care of the birds in the air, fish in the sea, the woodland creatures out there in the wood, and even the nocturnal creatures that sleep by day and move by night. He said, then on top of that, I still got to take care of you while you lay down to sleep at night. Wake you up in the morning, start you on your way. I have to regulate your mind. I have to tell you how to move. I have to tell you what you need to do. God said, I got enough to do. You can't even fathom what I do. And you think you know enough? And I hear folk talking about they got enough. I ain't got enough. I don't know enough. I still got some more room. Look, last time I checked, look, I got a tank that got an F and an E on it. It just barely moved off an E. Our Lord still filling me. And I'm telling, still fill my cup. So what you've been arrested for, you ain't even scratched the surface. But not only did he say, for what I've been arrested for, he said, but look, he said, what you need to do, he said, you need to develop amnesia. He said, you need to forget those stuff that are behind you. He said, you need to forget some things. Look, and what's wrong with us, we start holding on to some things. Look, just because you was a deacon way back in the day doesn't mean anything now that you've been elevated to being a preacher. Just because you was in the choir back in the day don't mean anything when you go on this pulpit. Just because you were serving as a trustee, just because you were doing some other work in the church doesn't mean nothing to God when you get to the pulpit. He said, forget about it.
That's right.
Yeah, forget about that stuff that's behind you. You know, too many times, so many people trying to still hold on to what's behind them. And you know, the late great Walter Payton, I heard him say one time, he said that they asked him, they said, look, Walter, what keeps you driving? What keeps you moving forward? Well, Walter Payton said that, he said, well, as long as I'm going forward, he said, it's like I'm in drive and I'm going forward and I'm keeping it moving. He said, but if I stop and look back, he said, I stop moving forward. And see, the Lord doesn't need anybody on his battlefield looking back. Because look, the enemy hadn't outflanked you. He ain't behind you because God got your back. Because when you see, when he tells you to put on the whole armor of God, he gives you everything you need in front of you and he'll leave your back exposed. And the only reason why he left the back exposed is because he said, look, I'm your homeboy, I'm your road dog, I got your back. And you know what? I ain't never seen a good soldier running and fighting. I've never seen a soldier that's able to turn tail and run and then fight a good fight. See, as long as you're moving forward, you can fight a good fight. But when you stop and turn and run away and turn and start looking back, I'm telling you, that's where you get into trouble. That's where, look, don't allow nobody to tell you, look, you know good and well you was this and that back then. I know where you came from. That's all right. I know where I've been. You ought to tell me you know where I came from, because I already know where I've been. But I thank God for where I've been because it has propelled me to where I'm going. Tell them, it says you need to have some amnesia. Say you need some amnesia. But then he says, I want you to understand, so when you develop amnesia, I want you to get some aspirations.
All right.
He said, I want you to reach for those things that are before you. See, the Lord said, I need you to reach for those things that are before you. He said, I need you to reach for those things that are before you. Yeah, y'all just keep missing me. But that's all right. Maybe you'll get it on down the line. He said, I need you to reach for those things that are before you. See, the Lord said, look, I tell you that there's more for you to get in front of you than what you're leaving behind. There's more for you to attain in front of you than what you're leaving behind. There's more gaining for you to do in what's in front of you than what's behind you. I tell you, look, it's greater in what's in front of you than what you have left behind. God said, I need some people that don't mind reaching for something. I need some people that have some aspiration. I need some people that have some expectation. You got to expect the Lord to bless you. You got to expect the Lord to bless your ministry. You got to expect the Lord to give you a word to say. You got to expect the Lord for his power to move on the inside. You got to expect the Lord to do something magnificent and marvelous and miraculous in your life. You know what the saddest thing is about church?
Yes, sir.
They don't have no aspiration. You got folks in church that don't have no aspirations. Do you ever aspire to be more in the Lord? Do you want more of the Lord? I tell you, we can sing these songs and we can sing them songs until we sing the taste out the soul. And then yet and still, do you see people striving to do more for the Lord? Do you see people striving to learn more for the Lord? Look, the Lord told in Jeremiah, he said, look, I'll give you pastors according to my own heart, that'll feed you with knowledge and understanding. My job is to feed you with knowledge and understanding. I don't want to have to do you like a baby gotta force feed you. I don't want to have to do you like a baby gotta make you eat something. God said you ought to freely want to come and eat at the welcome table. Because the Lord has already laid it out for us. He's placed it there. And even as preachers, look, I want you to understand something. He said, look, I'm laying the table out for you too. He said, study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the words of truth. And look, I want you to understand, you better sit down at God's feet. You better sit down at the table and let the Lord direct you and feed you. And I tell you, look, I done had some good food around here. I done had some good food in Crystal Springs. As a matter of fact, I went to Mr. D's before I came. And look, I almost wanted to go to sleep sitting up here. But the time was too good in here. And look, that food was good. But ain't nothing like a recipe coming from the Lord. Ain't nothing like food that's coming from God's table. But when the Lord, he said, I'll prepare a table in the presence of my enemy. He says, and I'll anoint your head with oil. And he said, look, your cup just won't be half full, won't be some full. He says, it'll run over. Run over. Tell the Lord, he'll feed you. But I think that's enough. I think that's enough. I need to go and sit down. Leave y'all alone. I know y'all done had enough. Y'all had a good time. I done enjoyed myself. The MC has kept us all going. She navigated the ship mighty well. The pastor has taken us down love lane and not complaining. But now, I'm done now. I tell you, you need to just press on. And I'm I'm telling you, just press on, because the Lord said, I need you to keep it moving. The Lord said, I did not call you just to stand still or just to sit on the sideline, but He says, I need you to get in the game and keep it moving. I tell you, the time's gonna get rough, and sometimes they will get hard, but I tell you, if you just keep on pressing. I know the dark clouds may rise, the storm winds may blow, but I tell you, just keep on pressing. I know sometimes your mountains may get high, your valley may get low, but if you just keep on pressing, I tell you, God will show up and the Lord will show out. And see, when you get weak, the Lord will infuse you with His strength. Because in the same book, I heard Paul saying, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. He said, I get weak sometimes, I get worn sometimes, I've been wounded on the battlefield, but the Lord has always been by my side, and every time my knees start buckling, the Lord just infused me with His strength, and every time I close up my Bible and say I ain't gonna study war no more, the Lord has picked me up and turned me back around. And let me tell you, while you're on this journey, it might get rough and it might get rocky. You might have some dips and you might have some trips on it, but while you're going, just thank the Lord while you're moving. I tell you now, I gotta keep going. I had a lot of mountains, I had a lot of valleys, but I thank God for blessing me. And you know what, when you get to the end of your journey, why don't you just take a look back and see where the Lord has brought you. I thank God for keeping me. I thank God for blessing me. I thank God for carrying me over, taking me through. I'm in your angel. Know that the Lord has been good to you. I'm in your angel. Know that the Lord has brought you a mighty long way. If you know the Lord, let me tell you, it's the way